Good evening, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Let's begin with a prayer, okay? In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, far from our shores sits the city of Rome, the city where Peter and Paul died, the city from which our Catholic faith spread, and the city in which our Holy Father resides. Help us tonight to better appreciate and be enriched by this holy city's importance, its history, and its beauty. May it be a place we visit someday, or if we've been there before, return. This we pray as we pray all things through Christ our Lord. Amen. Well, thank you for coming tonight. How many people have been to Rome before? Hands up. How many people have not been to Rome before? As I was saying, I just saved you a lot of money because you don't have to go now. I put this presentation together about 3 or 4 months ago because I wanted to present to you Rome in all of its glory, its past glory and its present glory, especially the glory of St. Peter's Basilica, the grandest church in the world. And I want to show not just St. Peter's, but under St. Peter's and under of St. Peter's, because that shows why St. Peter's is where it is, kind of how it got built. I want to show you the grave of St. Peter and show you the bones of St. Peter. Now, I just came back from Rome last week. I spent about, 9, 10, 11 days there, and I took a lot of photos, as I normally do, and I added to this presentation, and then I realized there's no way that I can show you all I want to tell you about St. Peter's, as well as show you Rome and its churches, its beauty, and its city life. So what I've decided to do, I've taken St. Peter's out of this presentation. And we're going to move it to a month from now on November the 9th. It's a Thursday at 7 p.m. And I'll just be in St. Peter's. So if you want to see the glory of that church and all that it means, mark your calendar for it'll be in the bulletin, November the 9th, and I'll show you this beautiful, beautiful basilica. So tonight what we're going to do is just take a look at Rome. Now, it stands, this is the Mediterranean Sea, Atlantic Ocean there. You've got Spain, you've got Italy. Italy's obviously the most distinctive country in the world. It looks like a big boot. And Rome sits right about there, okay? The far eastern end is Israel, of course, where all the violence and war is right there, far from Rome. But the faith spread from Israel to Rome and from Rome out to the rest of the world. Rome itself is a large, large metropolitan city. It's the capital of Italy. Okay, it's huge. And right over there is not Rome and not Italy. It's Vatican City State. Vatican City is not a part of Italy, not a part of Rome. It's a part of Europe. In fact, if you write a letter to the Pope, you put Vatican City State, Europe. But this little smidgen is Vatican City, and this is Vatican City. You've got the St. Peter's Basilica, Vatican Gardens, this is the Vatican Museum. You can walk around the whole country in 45 minutes. So that's kind of an aerial view of what we're not going to show you tonight. Okay, but it dominates. It's the tallest building in Rome. I don't think anything's allowed to be bigger. It's beautiful during the day. It's beautiful at night. And we're going to go to the Colosseum. Okay, so all of that, all the St. Peter's is being talked about in a month from now. Let's talk about the Colosseum. This is what exists today. Now, it looks like it's in ruins. But remember this was built between 72 and 80 AD. That's about 2,000 years ago. It was and still is the largest amphitheater in the world, and was built to entertain Roman citizens and to showcase Roman engineering. This thing, 2,000 years ago, marvels some of the things we can do today. It's really called the Flavian Amphitheater. That's the name of it, Flavian Amphitheater. But right next to it was this big statue of Nero, the Emperor Nero, crazy Nero. And it was a colossal statue. So the building kind of, instead of being Flavian Amphitheater, it took the name of the colossal statue. Later, the statue was torn down and melted, I guess, taken away. But the name Colosseum kind of becomes the accepted name for it. Another picture. This is as it looked back in the day, 2,000 years ago, okay? This building sat 50,000 people. 50,000 people. And people could empty it in 20 minutes. Try to do that at most stadiums. You know, we can't do. They could do that in the day. They entered it and exited it. There were 84 gates. And each of these gates had a number on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way around. Number 1 was who? The emperor. Only he could go in gate number 1, door number 1. This building, it had drinking fountains throughout it for people that get thirsty. Thousands, as I said, would enter it. And also, interesting building. You see these things up here? See these things? This building had a retractable dome. There was a thing called the velarium, and it hung from these posts. See those posts? It took 1,000 men to manipulate this canvas red awning. So on sunny days, they would close the roof, as it were. The emperor had his box with that cover, the awning over it, and the people, for the most part, could be put in the shade because the Mediterranean is hot. So they just closed the roof. Incredible what they could do back then. Inside, again, back in the day, this is a model, there were 3 levels. The emperor had his box here, and the senators and high officials had this level. This was for the common people, and up here was for slaves and women. At least I let the women in, but this is the nosebleed section up there. When they dedicated this in 80 AD, they had 100 days of games to celebrate the opening of the Colosseum. And in the Colosseum, in those 100 days, there were inaugural games. 9,000 animals were killed, 3,000 gladiators died. It was just, it's the way they celebrated. Rome in those days was bloodlust. The Colosseum was built to entertain people. Once a month, it was about 10 to 12 times a year, they would use the Colosseum for the games. Games meaning entertainment. Very few Christians were put to death in the Colosseum. Thousands died in the Colosseum. They estimate 400,000 people died. Slaves, gladiators, criminals. They would have lions. They would have wild animals. They would bring in from the farthest reaches of the Roman Empire. To people had never seen ostriches and elephants and tigers and rhinoceroses. But that's what they'd be brought in here. Criminals would be thrown to them. They would have animals fighting other animals, criminals fighting the animals. But there was just bloodshed, immense amount, and was for the entertainment. If you keep the people happy and entertained, they're more or less likely to create problems. The Colosseum, they would put sometimes scenery, because underneath this floor, it was a wooden floor, they had rooms. They could keep the animals, they could keep the gladiators, they could keep prisoners, and there was 24 elevators that would bring these things up to the floor, and they would have trap doors, and if there was a gladiator or a criminal, they never knew which door was going to fly open, and the animal would come out. So think of the engineering for something like that. So they could one of the spectacles would be scenery like this. In the Colosseum, you still have mosaics of gladiators fighting tigers, animals, tigers, even fighting other gladiators. This would have been a scene of what it would have looked like in the day, with the emperor up here and the people around. Bloodlust, sheer bloodlust. but it was the entertainment for the common people. And they would remove the floor and flood it. If the Romans had a major sea victory, they could reenact the victory for the people. They'd flood the Colosseum and have miniature-sized ships, and they recreate the victory for people to see what happened who knows where. The engineering to flood that thing and then to empty it. It's just incredible. The admission was free, and they would give free food, keep people happy. They won't revolt if they're fed and they're happy. So that's the Colosseum today. Now, obviously, a lot of it has fallen down. This is 2,000 years old. Earthquakes have taken their toll. And we say, well, there's not much left. Well, how long do things last in our country before we blow it up or tear it down? 2,000 years. It's still around. Now, you see all these holes here? This was all sheathed in white marble, like this. This is what it looked like in the day. Beautiful marble, and each of these alcoves, I guess. I'm not sure who was in it. Maybe one of the gods, or maybe political figures, or whatever. But all these openings would have a statue in it. This is what it looks like today. All the beautiful white marble is gone. That would have been the inside in the day. This is the inside today. When they took the marble off, you see, left these big holes. When the Roman Empire fell, or really declined and then fell in the 5th century, this place was abandoned because there was the only thing that held Rome together was the church. There was no civil government, so to speak. So in the Middle Ages, when they were starting building these magnificent churches, like St. Peter's or like any of the other ones, you needed marble, you needed pillars, you needed columns. Well, why would you pay to quarry and carve columns and marble? It's right here. So a lot of this stuff in St. Peter's and other churches, it was free. The churches took it and repurposed it, recycled it. So today, they're ahead of their time. They recycled, but they also didn't do much good to the Colosseum. Again, that's what it looked like in kind of a whitewash view of it. This is it today. Now, they said they had a wooden floor. This had been recreated. And down here were all these storerooms, cages for animals, or rooms for gladiators, for prisoners, for whatever. It's a magnificent building. And the church put up a cross in memory of the hundreds of thousands of people that died there. Circus Maximus. Yes?
If I could add a little something
Yeah.
to what I read about that statue of Nero.
Yeah.
2 or 3 times the new emperor would knock the head off and put their head on it.
Oh, I don't doubt that at all. Yeah. Don't doubt that at all. Circus Maximus. A circus is what? A place of entertainment. So throughout the Roman Empire, they would have circuses, place to entertain people. A circus would be a place where they would have chariot races, gladiator combats, animal hunts, where Christians would be put to death. And back in the day, this is called the Circus Maximus, which means the greatest circus. This is the largest one. Now you have the Colosseum was here. Remember, Rome is built on 7 hills. This is the emperor's palace. And this is called the Palatine Hill. From we get the word palace or palatial, from Palatine. So the emperor's, this is all the emperor's home, palace on the hill. And he would come down and sit in this box there. But what does this look like? A racetrack. You see Ben-Hur? It would have been a Circus Maximus. It was those kind of things. Again, in the day, it's just a magnificent building. There were the thing was, I think, 3 stories tall, and 2 tiered. And here was a racetrack. Okay, where do you think the best seats were? Think in the middle? Nope. Here. Emperor's box here. Why there?
Finish line?
Pardon me?
Was it finish line?
No. Yeah, but more so. This is where all the people got killed. They're racing down here, and I don't think there were any rules. So all of the accidents, all the mayhem, the collisions would happen at the turn. So that was the society. This was actually built in 326 BC, 300 years before Christ. Now, in time, it wasn't large. It was repaired. There'd be fires. There'd be earthquakes. So it kept getting, but it's enormous. It could seat 250,000, a quarter of a million people could sit in there. It's that large. They had chariot races there for almost 1,000 years. Almost 1,000 years that was used in the middle of most circuses like this. This was called the spina. It's like a center thing, and they would have obelisks, which they would bring from Egypt. And I guess people could stand on there too. I'm not sure about that. And they also had private boxes. Well, obviously, the emperor's there, and other ones would be private for politicians, military personnel. Today, we would call them loges, I guess, but they were private reserved places. It was free admission, paid by the emperor, paid for by the emperor, like the games in the Colosseum were paid for by the emperor. It kept the rich and the poor entertained, and it kept them quiet, the poor. They would have chariot races, 4 chariots or 6, 8 or 12. A chariot race, they would have to lap this 7 times. That's 7 miles. Around here once is a mile. I mean, the place is huge. And I say it is huge. Well, here's an example of the chariot race. Is because this is it today. They have preserved the footprint. They haven't put a shopping mall in there. They know their history. They appreciate their history. So this is the outline of the Circus Maximus. And you still walk in there today. But it's just incredible. You walk where your fellow Christians died. So it's a horrible place, but also an incredible place. So you just walk and walk and walk. Trevi Fountain. Again, there's no method to this madness. I'm not using all the churches. I'm jumping all over the place. The Trevi Fountain is the biggest fountain in Rome. I mean, it's just magnificent. It stands 85 feet tall and 65 feet wide. You know, an ancient Roman aqueduct. Remember, the Romans brought water in from the mountains in an aqueduct, which was an elevated, arched waterway that would bring from different directions into the city to provide water for it. There was a very ancient aqueduct that brought water into Rome at this spot. And back in the 18th century, a pope, I forgot who it was, commissioned a fountain to be built. And this was finished in 1762, which is 14 years before the American Revolution. So this fountain, in that shape, has been flowing nonstop since before our country was founded. It's just a little perspective. There was a custom that when you go to the Trevi Fountain, again, it's usually very, very crowded, just very ornate, very beautiful. But you're supposed to take a coin on your right hand, throw it over your left shoulder into the fountain, and you don't look back. And if you do that, if you throw one coin, you're supposed to return to Rome. Now, I've thrown that coin 18 times. No, 19 times now, because I threw it last week. One coin assures you're going to come back to Rome. 2 coins assures you that you're going to live in Rome. And 3 coin means you're going to marry an Italian. So 4 coins, not sure. But every day, they sweep 3,000 euros from this fountain, and it's given to the poor. A euro is a little less than $1. So say $1. So it's a profitable venture. Street performers. There are people that make their living just entertaining on the street. And usually they do it in piazzas or well, I'll show you what I mean. People will just, like a chalk artist, and they will always have a little bucket or a pot or a suitcase for the offerings. And they do a variety of things. So this guy here is playing guitar, and he's got his little suitcase there. He's a street artist. There's Vermeer's, a woman with a golden earring. There's the little buckets there for your offering. Michael Jackson, I don't think that's the real one, though. This guy, he dressed up like a mummy, and he stands there, and when you put a coin in a pot, he bows. That's what he does all day. Now, in the Mediterranean sun, wrapped up in that, not quite sure if I want that job. This guy does with spray cans. He paints these with spray cans. John Lennon's there. This guy's a plant. I'm not quite sure what he just dresses up. He just sits there all day as a bush with his little bucket. Now here's a guy dressed up like, not sure what he's dressed up like. In fact, I'm not even sure it's a guy, but I felt it was clever, so I gave him a coin. And this guy just floats in the air all day. And this guy holds this guy in the air all day. So. With his little bucket, of course, you got a little bucket there. Casa San Angelo. This is a round building that was built as a tomb by the Emperor Hadrian, built it for himself about the year 135 AD. Okay? It's like 100 years after the death of our Lord. It was the tallest building in Rome until St. Peter's was built. Hadrian's ashes were put in there, buried in there, and so were his succeeding emperors were buried there as well, their ashes. As the empire was declining, it was turned into a military fortress. And then when the church got a hold of it, they took off all the marble and repurposed it, we'll say. But it's a beautiful place to visit, and as a history, it's just wonderful. This is what it looked like in the day as a mausoleum. And by the way, same bridge. And it's the castle of the Holy Angel. It's Castle San Angelo, Castle of the Holy Angel, Michael. And the bridge that leads to it, and right on the top is this enormous statue of Archangel Michael. In the 14th century, let me go back for a second. They built an elevated. There's an elevated wall. See, there's a wall there that stretches. It's 50 feet tall. It's got a crenellated walls like this, block things, and they built it and they fortified it as a way to connect to the Vatican. So this Castle San Angelo connects from here all the way down to the Vatican. So when the Vatican was under siege or they're looking for the Pope, he would hitch up his skirts and he would run through the top of this passageway and take refuge in Castle San Angelo. And you still see, do you ever see Angels and Demons with Tom Hanks? They show what that's like there. It must be a quarter of a mile long. I don't know. But you can still see it today, still there.
The old movie Roman Holiday has a fight scene.
Oh, did it? Well, it's still there. Beautiful at night. Just beautiful. Typical parish churches. Of course, parish churches, there's 1,000 churches in Rome, give or take 100, I don't know. It's about 1,000 they estimate. This is my guess, if a typical Roman would come into this church, which is, I love this church. It's beautiful, it's clean, it's big, people can see. I think most Romans would look, they'd say, well, that's nice. Because this is kind of what a church looks like. They're grand. Even this, now there's smaller ones like this, but this is the Church of St. Andrew. I went there to Sunday Mass 3 Sundays ago. And I think there were 45 people in this. The church, again, this is a little smaller parish church, a little smaller, but all of them are grand, with grand paintings and sculptures and decorations. Typical. Look at that parish church. We got to talk to Father John. Look at the dome on this church. You walk by these things, don't even see them. You stick your head in and say, wonder what that's like, and you see something like that. They're just nondescript on the outside, but inside they're just works of art. Couldn't reproduce them. City life. This is, in Rome, when you need to go, when you go buy food, they have mini markets, markets, and supermarkets. Supermarket. Here in our country, I said we tear things down, we build things bigger and grander. And they don't tear things down. They use what they had. They use things that have been around for hundreds of years. So they'd make a supermarket with a little bit of space they have. You don't need, 25 kinds of cereal. 3 or 4 will do. Or 19 kinds of olive oil. 4 would be fine. So this is a supermarket, and you just walk down here, and there's the same things we have in our country. You find everything in their country. Walk to the back. There was a little meat display, and bread and wine is in the back there, but nothing huge like what we would have. And barber shops. And it says, we're great listeners. So, I don't know. I was fascinated by fountains. They have fountains mostly in these piazzas. Or campos, but these fountains run 25 hours a day and 8 days a week, and been running for hundreds of years. And it's just wonderful water. It looks a little scuzzy, doesn't it? But if you need water, you need a drink of water, you go to one of the fountains. It's just wonderful, cold, clear, crisp water, and they're all over the place. Now, when I point out, if this thing stands about here, and you need a drink of water, what would you do? You kind of have to get down on your feet and no. See that little black spot? That's a hole. So what you do is you put your finger there, and you get a drink of water. The water comes to you. You don't go to the water. Last week I needed a drink of water, and I just had a drink. Now you got to line it up right. You can shoot somebody's eye out because it's he wasn't aimed up very well there. The kid's getting a drink, filling their water bottle. Got that plugged up there. Washing their hands, filling their water bottle. Hello, Barb Cully getting a drink. She had her finger on the thing. Cars, traffic. Traffic is crazy. They don't really have lane markers, white markers. It's just, so they have a lot of small cars like this thing. I don't know what, dinky little cars. Why would we want to get into that? Because the traffic is just mayhem, and I would be a little afraid to get into something like that. But you come to a big intersection, and you just kind of go. And I don't know how it works or why it works. All I know is that it works. They say when you're driving, you're responsible for the front of your car, and the other guys are responsible for the rest of it. So if you get your nose in, then they have to, I don't know. It makes no sense to me. But it's just you kind of just go. And when you park, you just park. Now, they have small cars, not all, many of them. So when you go to park it, you just park it. Do you see a problem? So they just park it, and if you not enough room, you park it like that. You got to do what you got to do. And if you drive a Porsche, you just park it, lock the door, and leave. That's a little alley. It's a street. He just left his car because it's a Porsche. I guess you can do that. And the monuments, these ancient monuments. This is the Arch of Titus. This was dedicated in 315 AD, and it's still there. And it's still in all its glory. The marble is still intact. This is the way it looked in the early 4th century. This one, this is called the Temple of Hercules. It's off the beaten path, but it just sits on the side of the road. You can't go in it. It's got a fence around it. But this was built in the 2nd century BC. 2nd century BC, and it just sits there. It's the oldest surviving building in Rome, and it just sits there unattended to. But I shouldn't say, but it's the city of Rome, takes care of it. But it's an ancient thing, and people just walk right past it. The streets of Rome, there are a few huge boulevards in which traffic is just crazy, but this would have been average-sized street, and smaller streets. And notice that most of the buildings are kind of orange-looking, yellow or orange, and I don't know why that is. It's just the way it is. A lot of graffiti. The buildings look sometimes pretty cruddy from the outside, but inside they're just beautiful. Little streets, little streets, little streets, little streets. And some of them just so beautiful. And as evening comes on, it starts getting dark out, lights come on, and people walk. In our country, after work, people come home and they do what? Eat dinner, and then what? Watch TV, watch the news, watch the people and go to bed. No. In Rome, they would have dinner either in or they go out, and they do something called the passeggiata, which means the stroll. And they go for a walk with their husband or wife, with their children, little children, with their girlfriend, boyfriend, but you just walk. And you get something to eat, or takeaway food, or a gelato, but you just walk. It's a wonderful thing. So in the evening, you don't find empty streets. People are just strutting their stuff, just walking. It's a great custom. They walk. When restaurants in Rome, where you look for a place to eat, there's restaurant, but most restaurants have seating outside. And so this would be there's restaurants which are rather pricey, and there's things called trattorias, which are little kind of mom and pop kind of places. Some are large, some are kind of small. This would be a more larger side trattoria. But what they do, they take the table and chairs and they drag them out. There's no sidewalks, so they drag them out into the street. And so these would be out in, and some of the trattorias, the little restaurants, are good size. This one, I had lunch at it. This was 7 feet from there to there. So when to get to your table, you kind of go like this, and you sit down. But in the window at this restaurant, the ladies, you go by there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they're making the noodles. You go by there at 10 o'clock at night, and they're making the noodles. But and then they make it, cut them, weigh them. And I don't think she enjoyed her job. I don't. But some of the restaurants are, like this one had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tables and 6 over here. So they're getting a little small, but they always have the menu outside. Always. So when you're going to eat, you look for the menu. It shows you, it's the same menu you're going to get when you sit down. You know what they serve, what it's going to cost, and it's just nice. They do that at some places in art, but not many. You will always see a menu. Always see a menu. Always see a menu. Some are small. It's a one-seater, but the menu is bigger than the table, I think. This would have been a restaurant, very nice one. And when you eat at night, they often will have a musician, an accordion, or a violinist, or a bass player. They'll come stand by remember you're kind of in the street, and they'll come by, they'll play a couple songs, and then pass the hat. And then they go to the next restaurant, and they go to the next one. That's how they make their living, passing the hat. This one is odd. We were having dinner at this restaurant, and I had a video, but I can't find it. I was sitting at this table, and it was in the street, and a bus came down, a small little bus, and I had to take my chair and pull it in for the bus to go by. And the bus went by, then I put my chair, like only in Rome. It's just wonderful. It's crazy, but it's just wonderful. This traffic light was in the restaurant because they bring the tables out into the street, and so the traffic, people were sitting here eating. I think the color, Tom, Barb, yeah, they were with me in Rome a number of years ago. We were eating here, and the traffic light was there because the cars were coming by here. So you have to look into it when you're driving, checking because the lights are not in the middle of the street like ours are. They're off to the side, but that was in the restaurant. And the food, the antipastas, the mozzarella, I know what some of this stuff is. Some of it's, I don't know, but just wonderful antipastas. I don't know what that is. Some of you don't want to know what it is, I think. Salads. Barb, was that one of your salads? Barb, I think, took that picture. Barb Cully. It's wonderful salad. Remember those ladies that were making the pasta? This is called pasta carbonara. I had their pasta from the ladies. It was just wonderful. Pesto pasta, I guess. There's so many different shapes and kinds of noodles, of pasta. I don't even know what some of this stuff is or what kind of noodles. They're just sizes and shapes and what they can do with pasta. Pasta alla vongole, pasta with clams, little clams and oil. Oh, delicious. I don't know what that was. I don't know what that was, but it looked delicious. Some kind of ragu or carbonara. Anybody know what that is? Not a lasagna. No. Lasagna would be layered. What is that? No, not ravioli. I don't know what it is. What is this? That's ravioli. I don't know what that is. Just wonderful. I mean, you get lamb chops and great French fries. They're the best French fries. They must do them in lard or something, but they're just wonderful. This is my lunch a week before last. I love what's called fritto misto. It's fried mixed from the sea. So you had prawns and squid, and I don't know what that thing was, but it was just absolutely delicious. Just great seafood. Yeah. If you like calamari, I mean, that's the place to come. Just delicious. I carried away here, so. I wasn't quite sure how to eat it, so. Sometimes you just need French fries and a beer. After a while, pasta kind of gets up to you. So you got to revert to an American lunch. So, and some don't care about French fries, care about prosciutto. So Barb, how many prosciutto pictures do you have? A number. Pizza, okay? Now, pizza is an art form, and there are different kinds of pizza, what they can do with pizza. Like, you know pepperoni? You order pepperoni there, you get little peppers. Pepperoni, little peppers. So you don't find sausages and pepperoni, our kind of pizza. You get Italian pizza, so it's going to look differently. It's going to look different. I don't know what some of this is, but it's just, one is better than the other. Just wonderful. And this one, pizza capricciosa. You got the ham, you got olives and mushrooms and an egg. Got to have an egg on your pizza. Delicious. And you know, when you get a pizza, we get a pizza, you share it. No, you don't share a pizza. Get your own pizza. You don't share pizza. Now, it's very thin, so no problem eating a whole pizza. I mean, it sounds wrong, but it's right. Because in a restaurant, too, when you sit down there, That's your table for the next 2 or 3 hours. They will not bring you the bill unless you ask for it. So here in our country, they try to turn that table over for another, no. When you sit down, that's your table. So if you want to eat a pizza for 2 hours, well, then you eat pizza for 2 hours. It's just a different way of life. This lady was making, I don't know what is this? What was she making here? Well, exactly a tortellini. I don't know what it was, but it's spinach because it's green. And after dinner, you go to a gelateria for gelato. They would look at our ice cream and go, theirs is rich and creamy and filling. Their chocolate ice cream, it's a meal. I mean, it is just so rich. And it's so colorful and so many different flavors. And you don't know what it is. They'll have a little explanation, a little name for it, saying what it is. But so in the evening, you get a gelato, you go for a walk.
Where's our samples?
Now, so this says, it's like a melon. So they have coffee, chocolate, hazelnut. I was afraid to try the blue one. Stay away from the blue gelato. Don't ask. But I didn't try it, so. And then you go for a little walk. Victor Emmanuel Monument. This thing dominates the skyline. You see it, St. Peter's is bigger, but this thing is bigger and uglier, from my not so humble opinion. It was designed to pay homage to Victor Emmanuel II, who united the various city-states into one country called Italy. He wasn't buried. He's buried in the Pantheon, which I'll show in a minute. But this was dedicated in 1911, and I don't think the Romans like it because it's taken up prime real estate. It's built over some ancient ruins, and it's so, well, all I'm saying is that the Italians have a nickname for it. They have they call it the wedding cake, they call it the typewriter, and they call it the dentures. Because it's just, and there is, right there is a tomb of the unknown soldier, like we have in our country. There's 2 soldiers, and there's like an eternal flame. And this week before last, I went up on the roof here. You take an elevator to the roof, and you get a wonderful view of the whole city. So it's worth the expense if you ever go there. That's it at night. It is kind of beautiful at night. The Roman Forum. We have public square, kind of the hub of a city. Well, back then, this is what it would have looked like in Rome. It was the center of the city. It was these magnificent buildings. There would be temples. There would be shrines. There would be what they call basilica. A basilica was a Roman public building, a court of law or a gathering place, but like a hall of justice. That's the word basilica. And the forum was just filled with this. Huge. So it's where all roads came together. When an emperor would, or a general, I should say, would be victorious in battle, they would bring into Rome all the prisoners and all the booty and all the spoils of war, and they'd bring it into the forum. People would gather in downtown to see the conquered king be dragged in naked in a cage, and it was just a place of all public events took place in the forum. They would have markets, a place you would buy foods, dry goods, wheat, oil, wines, where all these big shops would be. So it was just magnificent public forum. That's what it looked like in the day. That's what it looks like today. Now, you go from this to this, you say, well, there's nothing there. That's still there after 2,000 years. And archaeologists can tell you what all these basilicas, what these temples were, some of these original temples. So that there's that much preserved is just remarkable. See this road here? This is called the Sacra Via, means a sacred way. And it goes right down through the middle of the forum. When, again, generals would bring their booty and their prisoners in, they would come down right through the middle of the forum on these stones. This is the road Julius Caesar would have walked. You can walk it yourself today. Romans built roads to last. This is the original Roman roads, right through the middle of the Forum. And so every emperor would have walked down there. Millions of Romans over the centuries would have walked down there. Still the same road. Mamertine Prison. I don't know why it's called Mamertine, but this is, remember, St. Paul and St. Peter died in Rome. St. Paul died in 67, I think, and St. Peter died in, did he die? 65, I think. But anyways, they were both taken to this prison. This says the prison of the holy apostles, Peter and Paul, Mamertine. This is what it would have looked like in the day. This was street level here. They would bring a prisoner in here. And this was a prison for anybody, but Peter and Paul would have been held here. They would bring in a guard, and they would lower them through this hole in the floor into this pitch black holding area, I guess. It's like an old cistern. It had been dark and dank with rats and mice and whatever. This is the hole that they would have lowered him through, and they have a grate over it now. And this would be the place where Peter would have been held, Paul would have been held, and countless other prisoners before they would be taken to be killed. But turn off the lights, fill it with creepy crawlers. It's dark and it smells, and everything happens in there. So you can still visit there today. Roman markets. People don't have big refrigerators. They don't have big freezers. People shop pretty much every day or every other day, and they have markets, so they would have places to shop. This is the Campo di Fiori. It's every day of the week. There would be a market here. People would bring their wares in, fruits, vegetables, seafood, clothing, cups, wines, cheeses, wonderful fresh fruits, peaches and tangerines, apples, bananas, pears, cantaloupes, just endless amounts of things. They would there's a little rolling meat market here with chickens and things. Fish, fresh fish. You just go up and they tell them what you want. Get fish for the day or fish for the evening. I don't think he enjoyed his job either, but a fishmonger, what you do is you just tell him what you want, grabs a handful of fish, throws in like a paper cone there, and wraps it up and gives you your fish for the night or for the breakfast, I don't know. And, zucchinis and what are those, leeks? No. Anise. Peppers, cucumbers, beans, strawberries, more beans, cauliflower, limes, tomatoes, endless. Goes on. I don't even know what some of this stuff is, but. And pastas. Now this is designed for the tourists, okay? It's in English, €3 for a bag. But the shapes, the colors, and the kinds of pastas, it's just endless. See this pasta? Why is it black? Squid ink. It says ink squid. So they use the black ink from the squid. And hard to get it here, I imagine. More pasta. Pasta. And spices. All kinds of spices. Packaged. Just endless. And alcohol. Okay? And the nice thing about it is, see the little plastic cups? It's very civilized. You take the little cup, I tried the other. And sometimes they will pour or help yourself. Can you do this in a state store? I'm not sure. No? Try that $100 scotch there, please. And then you can buy little bottles of the spirits or larger bottles. Flowers, flower shops. Basilica of St. John Lateran. St. John Lateran is the oldest of the Roman basilicas. This is older than St. Peter's. St. Peter's was built around the year 320, I think. This was built first. When the Roman Empire, Constantine, became Christian, one of the first things he built was this basilica of St. John Lateran. This was built in 324 AD. Now, granted, it's been rebuilt. Earthquakes, fires have taken their toll. They would rebuild it, enlarge it a little bit, but this is on the original site and it's still the same church. It's an important church. Well, you see this right here, these medallions here and here? They say the same thing. They say this, and that says in Latin, the Holy Lateran, the mother and head church of the world and the city. This is the most important church in the Catholic Church because, well, first of all, these medallions are huge. A good size. The doors of this basilica, St. John Lateran, they're massive. They're from remember I showed the Roman Forum, like the downtown? These are the doors from the Senate House there. These are over 2,000 years old, really 2,100 years old. They're 24 feet tall. Each one weighs 8 tons. And I've seen a man close them with one hand. 8-ton doors, about this thick. They're huge. And they creak. They creak loud, but you can close them. But what makes St. John Lateran so important, again, this is inside it. It's not a whole, the statuary is just beautiful. But what's important about it is, you know, the apse. We don't have an apse. You have the altar, and then some churches have the rounded area behind it. It's called the apse. This is the Pope's church. Like, we have, the head church in the Diocese of Cleveland is St. John's Cathedral in downtown Cleveland. That's the diocesan cathedral. It's where it's the bishop's church. The bishop presides out of that cathedral. This is the cathedral for the Bishop of Rome, who is the Pope. So anything that's going to be major, like remember when something's defined as infallible, Pope speaks ex cathedra. Remember that term, ex cathedra? Cathedra is the word for seat. There it is. That's the Pope's seat, so to speak. Anything official pronounced is pronounced from St. John Lateran. It's so striking that only the Pope sits in there. It's the Pope's cathedral, and it's been there as the first major church in our Catholic tradition. It's where so the Pope still does things there, but it's not as big as St. Peter's. Things at St. Peter's because it's enormous, and it holds many more than St. John Lateran. This would just be used for something formal and official. It's beautiful. All it is a chair. The cathedral. That's why our cathedra, chair, it's the chair of the bishop. Bishop of Rome, Bishop of Cleveland, Bishop of whatever else, the cathedral, the chair. This is the residence. This is, again, it's been reworked. The popes lived at St. John Lateran for over 1,000 years. They only moved to St. Peter's in the Middle Ages because it was room for more people. So the Pope would be living here, I said, for nearly 1,000 years. Basilica of St. Mary Major. Again, this was built in 440 AD, but it was dedicated to Mary, the Mother of God. It's the largest church dedicated to Mary. And what's interesting about it is that, first of all, this is the interior. See that ceiling? Again, remember, these churches were rebuilt or enlarged or more ornamented more. This roof was gold from the New World. So when, I don't know where they got it from the New World, probably not the best of circumstances, but it was brought and they gilded the ceiling of St. Mary Major. But the reason I want to show it to you, and this is the main altar with this big baldachin over it, but what's important about this is, in that apse, on the back, there's this huge mosaic. And It's a mosaic. This is it goes back to the 4th or 5th century. And you see, there's Jesus. And what's he doing? Crowning his mother. People who do not have a devotion to Mary by thinking, well, you don't need it. That's unnecessary. You go tell the early Christians it was unnecessary. No. From the earliest centuries of our church, they saw Mary as very important. They saw Mary as not just the mother of Jesus, but as the Queen of Heaven. And so they built this whole huge church and ornamented it in a way that if you couldn't read, you could certainly see how important Mary was as a Christian or as a Catholic. So it's worth going there just to see this beautiful mosaic. And outside there's this big column with Mary on top of it. The Church of St. Mary in Trastevere, ugly. I mean, it's just nondescript. But, okay, there's nothing pretty about it, so I got a lot of pictures of it. But inside, also not so pretty. But I remember showing to you, see this apse? Here's the altar, there's a big apse, this mosaic. This mosaic goes back to about the year 300. And again, don't let anybody tell you that Mary's not important. Because back in the 300s, what did they do? Jesus, Mary, where's Jesus' hand? He has his hand around his mama. Mary was so important in the early church that they froze that in time. This is a picture of how Christians believed in the early centuries. So Mary has been important in our church going back to the earliest centuries. And they showed it right there. Look. Got his hand around his mother.
I read what a Sistine Chapel was.
No. I don't think. On the Last Judgment on the back wall, she's next to Jesus, but the whole thing's not dedicated. I'm going to be showing a month from now when we talk about St. Peter's Basilica. We're going to talk about St. Peter's. We're going to talk about the Sistine Chapel, and we're going to talk about a lot of other things about that. But the Sistine Chapel, it's just jaw-dropping. So come in a month from now to see what that is all about. St. Peter in Chains, again, pretty? No. But important. In the early, what they have in it, this is the altar. And in front of it is a little reliquary, like a little box, and these are supposed to be the chains that bound Peter when he was taken to Rome and held before his execution. But what's even, I think, more important is this. In the early 1500s, Pope Julius II wanted a massive tomb carved for himself to be placed in St. Peter's Basilica, okay? So he wanted Michelangelo to carve this huge tomb with 40 Michelangelo statues. Okay, so Michelangelo would start working on it. Shortly thereafter, Julius stopped him and wanted him to paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. So Michelangelo never finished the tomb. He just finished this of Moses and these other figures. But the statue of Moses is just absolutely incredible. You can look at the veins, look at the muscles. It's just, and it just sits on this, you go into St. Peter in Chains, and this whole thing is just off to the side. You can walk right by it and not see it. And there's this Michelangelo statue of Moses. Look at that. It's just incredible. Marble, carved out of marble. It's said that Michelangelo thought this was his greatest sculpture, his greatest carving. In fact, the story is that he felt it was so alive that he would talk to it. And one day, it didn't answer him, so he threw his chisel or his hammer at it. And he chipped the knee, and you can still see the chip in Moses' knee where supposedly Michelangelo threw a hammer at it. Piazza Navona. The Piazza Navona, it was called the Stadium of Dormition. It was a chariot race that they would have in here. And again, it was built in 86 AD, covered with white marble. It sat 30,000 people. But in the 15th century, they covered it over. And they made Piazza Navona. So they preserved the original shape of this ancient circus, and this is where it looks today. They just superimposed this on these buildings here. So the Romans have saved it. But what's nice about it, well, put it this way. This, see right here, for chariot races, you would enter the circus through those gates. Well, that was 2,000 years ago. An ancient city grows about a foot a century with dust and debris and buildings coming down. They built. So every century, the level of the city would be about a foot. So today, when you're walking modern Rome, ancient Rome is about 20 feet below you. But here, see right there, where you would come in? I'm at the street level looking down about 20 feet. And you can see the main entrance to that stadium. So whenever you, like I'll show the Pantheon, all these old buildings, you have to walk down to them from the street level, the level of present-day Rome. You got to go down to get to where the city of Rome was way back when. So I'm standing at modern Rome, got to look down to see where this was, okay? But this is present-day Piazza Navona. What's fun about it is the street life, the activity. First of all, these three wonderful statues. The one in the middle is done by Bernini, the great Renaissance sculptor, the four fountains, but just magnificent. But during the day, but especially in the evening, the life that pops up, you have people, again, making their living, the bubble blowers, or maybe this guy just rolled around in a hoop. That was how he made his living. I don't know what he does, but I don't know if these are, should be a little more in focus, I think. Maybe not. Artists, caricatures, painters. This guy was just painting or sketching that man there, or lady just played the harp. Got a little thing there. But you don't know what you're going to see. It's just absolutely a fun place to go. The guy's still floating with a little bucket. Obelisks. Try to go as quick as I can. The Romans had a great respect for Egyptians. First of all, they conquered Egypt, and they marveled at the Egyptian obelisks. The hieroglyphics on this. The Romans, when they conquered Egypt, they would take these huge obelisks, lower them, transport them to the Mediterranean, load them on ships, cross the Mediterranean, up the Tiber River, into Rome, get them to wherever they're going to put it, and erect it, and not break them. And these are multi-ton obelisks. And they're all over the place. They're all over the place. They're just remarkable. And of course, that's not St. Peter. This is a fun one. In the 1600s, they found a small obelisk. I think it was 17 feet tall, in a garden of a Dominican church, okay? And the Pope Alexander VII wanted the obelisk to be erected in front of the church of St. Mary Sopris Minerva, which is right behind the Pantheon. So he asked for suggestions for a base for this obelisk to sit on. Well, there was a Dominican priest who suggested a particular design for this obelisk, and the Pope didn't like it. So he asked Bernini, the incredible sculptor Bernini, to come up with a fitting base. So what Bernini, who was, again, a sculptor and an architect, he wanted to symbolize the strength of wisdom in the human mind, so he wanted to put it on an elephant's back, this massive thing. This is supposed to be wisdom and human ingenuity and mind. Well, the Dominican priest criticized it. He said, this thing could not carry the weight of this big obelisk. And you do not criticize Bernini. You do not criticize Bernini. So Bernini So up to this thing, it certainly carried the weight, but he positioned it in such a way that it faced the Dominicans' residence. So every morning when they got up, that's what they had to look at. Don't challenge Bernini. And of course, the greatest obelisk is right in St. Peter's Basilica. We'll talk about this later, next month. This is the last thing probably St. Peter saw before he died. That's that in the circus where Peter was crucified upside down. We'll talk about that. Quickly moving on, I'll try to finish up quickly. The Pantheon. The Pantheon, Pan means across, theos means God, or all the gods. They made a monument to all of the gods. This the Romans did. And right there, on the front of it, it says Marcus Agrippa, the M for Marcus Agrippa, F for Filius, the son of Lucius, a council for the third time made this. So there's right who made it, who he was, when he did. But that's a lie, because he didn't do it. It was made by Hadrian in the year 123, and he is credited his predecessor for it. But it was a monument to the gods, and it's just an incredible building that's still there today. That's the way it looked in Roman days. This is how it looks today. It hasn't changed much. They took some of the marble off here. Whoop, wait a minute. They took the marble off here. They stripped the bronze off the dome, and it became the baldacchino in St. Peter's Basilica. So recycle it again. But I don't know if you see the street. This is the Roman level 2,000 years ago, street level. To go up to modern Rome, you got to go uphill. And back here is the level of modern Rome. But down here, 20 feet low, is where ancient Rome was. And this is the way it looks today. Incredible, just an incredible building. What's interesting about it is it's a total circle inside. It's 127 feet wide, 127 feet tall. If you had a basketball, it'd fit in there perfectly. This is the largest, well, this is the way it would have looked in Roman days, okay? With all this, with the ceiling all decorated with tile. There's called an oculus, the Latin word for eye. It's a 27-foot wide hole in the ceiling from which the light comes and the rain comes. It's illuminated only through the hole in the ceiling. It is the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world. They designed this thing. This is the way it looks today. It's enormous. How the Romans developed how to use concrete. They had concrete that would set underwater. They developed a dome like this, a building that could support a dome. When Michelangelo designed the dome of St. Peter's Basilica, he came here, there's a little hole in the dome in here, somewhere around the corner, that he took out to see how the Romans had engineered that 1,500 years ago. So he would know how to engineer the dome of St. Peter's. He respected it. This dome I think St. Peter's dome is a few feet smaller than here. He wanted to respect what the Romans had done. It's just a remarkable building.
So it's still open?
Oh, yeah. You just walk right in. Yeah. I think now they charge a smaller.
In the hall,
Oh, yeah.
it's still open if the rain comes in.
And if you're there on the Feast of Pentecost, by the way, you go to Pentecost. I went to Mass there a week ago Saturday. And because it's church, it was dedicated to them. It was dedicated to all the Roman gods, but when the Roman Empire fell, the church took it and dedicated to the martyrs. And they brought, I don't know how many cartloads of bones from the catacombs and are interred in this, now it's a Catholic church. But on the Feast of Pentecost, after Mass, the Roman fire brigade goes up on the roof and they throw rose petals, tons of rose petals down. And so there's a shower of rose petals on Pentecost at the end of Mass. You can Google that sometime. Google the video of them doing that. And then, of course, at night, they drag tables out into the streets. And beautiful place to have dinner. St. Paul outside the walls. This is just, I think, one of the prettiest basilicas. It's way outside the city. Well, it's a subway ride, about maybe a 10-minute subway ride. But it's where St. Paul is buried. St. Paul he was beheaded outside the city of Rome, and this is where he's buried. But they have like a big courtyard before you go into the church. The thinking is, before you go into a place of worship, you have to decompress. You got to let the worries of the world leave you. So they have this big courtyard just to kind of relax yourself and get ready to enter the house of God. But there's this enormous statue of St. Paul. And I mean, it's big. I mean, it's big. But it's a lovely, again, do you notice basilicas don't have pews in there for the most part? People just stand. But they do bring chairs, like for Sunday Mass, they'll drag some chairs in or some benches in. But they didn't when they built churches in days gone by, you stood. But what's interesting about it is here, this is the altar, and right here are the chains that held St. Paul. What's interesting, I should show you. Right here, it's right here. What did I show you? Oh, no. Right here it says sarcophagus of the Apostle Paul. If you would, a number of years ago, I went to Rome I took a course on what's called Paleo-Christian Art and Architecture in Rome in northern Italy. We spent a month with a Jesuit, and there were 5 of us, and we spent 2 weeks looking at the building, at the churches and the way they're designed, and looking at the mosaics. And he wanted to show us St. Paul outside the walls, to kind of look at it and explain what stuff is and why stuff is. So we took the subway out there. We got there about 1 o'clock, and the place was locked because the Italians have a thing called riposo, siesta, and things just close. Not St. Peter's, but a lot of churches lock because the priest goes to bed. So it's locked up. We got here, the place was locked. So the priest, our prof or professor was saying, well, I'm not going all the way back. We're going to break in. So he found a door open, and the 6 of us got into this big empty basilica. And he says, you want to see the tomb of St. Paul? I said, what do you mean? He said, if we remove this grate, we can look down a shaft and we will see his sarcophagus. Because we were told that on the sarcophagus that was built by the Emperor Constantine, there are 3 words, Paul, Apostle, and Martyr. And they haven't touched it. So he took off the grating, we went in, crawled up underneath and looked in this shaft, and down there was this marble cover of a sarcophagus that said Paul, in Latin, Paul, Apostle, Martyr. People aren't normally allowed to do that, but since the priest was in bed, but anyways, enough said. What's interesting about this basilica is, too, you see this and you see this. What they have on here are huge medallions. I don't know how big they are, but they're mosaics of all of the popes, pictures of all the popes. Now, obviously, you don't know what most popes look like. 97% of them, they don't know. But from starting with Peter, way back over here in the little alcove, and going all along here. I think it was like, was it 262 popes? Yep. Yes, yeah. Deacon Tom says that's how many there were. But they have these medallions of all of their faces, and it goes here, and it goes around the corner. This is a close-up of Pope Paul VI and Pope John Paul I. And there's Pope Francis. But what's interesting is there's Francis. That's blank, 2, 3, I think there's a 4th one. And the legend is when they fill them all up, that's it, Jack. So the end's supposed to come when they fill up the last niche in St. Paul's outside the wall. So there's only, I think, 3 spots left. So I don't know. I guess we'll find out. And lastly, you heard of the Spanish Steps? You want to see the Spanish Steps? There's the Spanish Steps. They're steps. I don't know why they're important. And This was Spanish Steps a few years ago. This is the Spanish Steps today. You're no longer allowed to sit on them. You're no longer allowed to eat on them. If you do, it's €400 fine, like $400 if they catch you sitting on the steps. It's Italy. It's just, okay. So anyway, so at night, the Tiber River, which runs right around the left side of the city, lights come on, and the sun sets over St. Peter's Square. Lights on the Basilica, and at St. Peter's at night. Arrivederci Roma. Okay, went too long, but any questions or comments? Yeah.
Everything is so clean.
Clean?
I mean, like the streets in your photo.
No. It's, first of all, graffiti's everywhere. And there's trash in the street and junk everywhere. I didn't show it too well. Well, yeah, it really is. It's a shame it's as junky looking, but it's beautiful in its own way. It's just, they're kind of loosey-goosey. And I think I saw one street sweeper in my whole life there. They just, it's Italy. It's, yeah.
How do those entertainers, how do they levitate?
How they levitate? That'd be $5. I'll tell you. See me after, I'll tell you. I know how they do it. Yeah.
The one thing I noticed with a lot of the outside arenas and stuff, it must have been smart because there's not one seat behind the pole.
No poles. No. Tremendous engineers. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, one last thing. When I was in Rome, I purchased some medals. I got a crucifix, a bunch of crucifixes, and some St. Francis medals. And last Sunday, not this Sunday, the Sunday before, I went to St. Peter's, and Pope Francis blessed anyone who had medals in the square. So if you like a crucifix, a small for a chain or something, or a St. Francis medal, you can pick one up from Deacon Tom here, and they're blessed by the Pope just over 2 weeks ago. So that's it. Thank you very much. And I said we'll see you hopefully on November the 9th at 7 o'clock. And the thing on St. Peter's is just marvelous. And you'll learn so much. So thanks again, everybody.